St. Johns County's local arts agency launched what it's calling a heritage trail, connecting many significant points in St. Johns County's Black history. We're joined this morning by Dr. Tameka Bradley Hobbs, author, historian, and lead researcher for the St. Johns County Black Heritage Trail, Brenda Swann, the Director of Programs and Development at the St. Johns County Cultural Council. So, good morning. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Regina Gayle Phillips, the Executive Director at the Lincolnville Museum and Cultural Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Thomas Jackson, a community advocate and local historian. Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning. Good morning.
All right. I am going to. Dr. Hobbs, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Good.
All right. Good morning. I want to start by asking you with this project, since you were the lead researcher, you're a historian, you have at least one published book about history in Florida. Can you talk to us a little bit as a historian, how you approach diving into history in St. Johns County about this?
Sure. As a native Floridian, it was an honor to be invited to consult on the project. I was familiar over many years and during my career working with TJ Thomas Jackson at Fort Mose, and I, of course, have known Regina Phillips for years through our connection with the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network. For a number of years, I served as the historian at Florida Memorial University, which is now in Miami-Dade County, but for 50 years was located in St. Augustine. And so I had all of these bits and pieces that I was personally and professionally familiar with. So to come in and take on the challenge of trying to sort through all of these stories.
Since we're talking kind of high level about this project and about the history of it, but Brenda, could you start by talking with us a little bit about how people can engage with this trail? Because the points on it are pretty wide spanning across St. Johns County in various areas.
Sure, absolutely. So we have probably the quickest ways. We have a website, which is stjohnsculture.com/BH for Black History and Heritage, or Heritage, your preference. And that has a list of all the sites, a map where they're located. It has a few of the stories that are included in the printed version, which is you can pick up at the local visitor information centers, also welcome centers. Visit Florida Welcome Centers. We'll be distributing them there, and to some of the accommodations in probably the greater St. Augustine area. But probably the easiest way is to go on our website, and there's a flipbook version of the printed book, and as well as a web page that has all the sites listed where you can learn what you would see there and what you might want to experience more of when you go there.
And I will say too, I know you guys brought some and I've got a printed copy too. It's a really beautiful piece that has photos of all the things to look for and some additional historical information. While we're talking about it, I'm curious, since it's a little widespread, the idea of this is that it's self-guided too, right? And that you can kind of drive from point to point, maybe walk to some of them?
Correct, yes. So, yes, definitely the idea is that you would, there's some that are pretty close together, particularly in downtown St. Augustine. But yes, there's several sites that are further out that share a different type of history, particularly like Armstrong Park, which is in the southwest portion of St. Johns County. That's where the southern terminus of the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor, which is pretty unique. And so we're so glad that we have that history here, and we can share it. Now more people will know about it, and there's signage there to learn more, picnic areas, that sort of thing. And then they have an annual event the first weekend of December. So that is one place you would definitely want to drive to. Or they have a bike trail. If you're a cyclist, you might want to ride your bike there. So
I'm curious, and I'd love to hear all of your guys' perspective on this, how the different landmarks and sites on this trail were selected, because there's no shortage of places that are integral to Black history and the area's history overall in St. Johns County. So how were the areas selected?
So part of what we did, and if we get Dr. Hobbs back on, she can talk more about this. But we had a series of public meetings, and one public meeting was more for the Thomas Jacksons and Regina Gayle Phillips of the area, the sort of the subject matter experts, to kind of come up with some priorities, and then we had the general public come in as well. And Dr. Hobbs rather led those discussions and the charrette, if you will, to develop the priorities, the stories that need to be told, the sites that need to be shared. And so the idea here is that though there is definitely narrative in the guidebook and on the website, the idea is that the sites themselves tell the story. So you go to the sites, and that's how we develop the themes and where to go and that sort of thing.
Well, I want to talk about some of the specific sites that are on this trail, even though, I think any individual site on this trail could be worth an hour worth of discussion or easily more. But Ms. Phillips, as the head of the Lincolnville Museum, can you talk to us a little bit about the Lincolnville neighborhood, some of the sites there, some of the history there?
Right. So Lincolnville is probably one of the oldest continuous black neighborhoods in the city, going back to 1866. I know Fort Mose was the first. I get a look from Mr. Jackson over here. But it has been in existence since the end of the Civil War.
Hmm.
And so it's been on the National Register of Historic Places as a historic district since 1991. So you have a lot of people who grew up in that area. A lot of our civil rights history comes out of that area. A lot of other history, Reconstruction, and different things that are part of Lincolnville history. So early education, St. Benedict's,
Hmm.
the Excelsior School where we're located. All of those things are part of the background of Lincolnville, which is still a community that is a heritage community that people come to. We have tours that come through there on a daily basis. Obviously, we have the museum where we do daily tours
Hmm.
and share that history as well. So the Lincolnville community probably helped to shape some of the other things that we talk about in terms of those early free black people that came back
Hmm.
and branched out in other parts of the county, or maybe they had lived in other parts of the county prior to that, but that was like the hub or the focal point of where people came to. Even the people who worked at Florida Memorial, which was on the west side of town,
Hmm.
most of the professors lived in the Lincolnville area.
I'm just happy anytime there's an opportunity to kind of give more attention to the Lincolnville neighborhood too, just because, I grew up in Central Florida. We would take field trips up to St. Augustine when I was a little kid, but I think maybe this is painting too broad of a brush, but I think it's very common for people when they visit St. Augustine as a tourist to chiefly engage with the historic downtown area. And even though
Mhm.
Lincolnville is still within the bounds of the greater historic area, they might not get out into the Lincolnville area and get to see as many of those other areas out there that don't quite get as much attention as they typically do when it's such a vibrant neighborhood with a lot of interesting history.
Absolutely, and we hope that this guy will help to draw more people to that area.
Mhm.
We also have, in addition to the Lincolnville Museum, we have the Accord Civil Rights Museum that's in
Mhm.
the Lincolnville Historic District. We have the Robert B. Hailing Freedom Chimes Park that's there. I mentioned the St. Benedict de Moore, a lot of historic churches that are there that go back over 150 years. So there's a lot of history, a lot of the civil rights workers that either lived primarily in the Lincolnville area. And so those markers are there, different sites that people could go to within that district. So if you come to the Lincolnville district, you'll see a big portion of this
Yes.
history
Right.
Mhm.
that's displayed there. And we'll point you to some of the other things when you get there.
Mr. Jackson, I want to talk to you a little bit too because Fort Mose is one of the sites on the Heritage Trail. You're one of the founding members of the Fort Mose Historical Society, so I know you are very well versed in this history. It's a really fascinating history at this fort, at this area that I think a lot of people aren't overly familiar with. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, Fort Mose, well, the official name, Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose, it's the site of the first freed black settlement, what is now the United States, but was at that time Spanish Florida. And the Fort Mose Historical Society was tasked with the job of actually assisting the Florida Park Service develop the site and interpret the site. And of course, we've been working since our inception in 1996, um, trying to do that task. And of course, the park is there, the boardwalk is there,
Mhm.
and just recently we just cut the ribbon on a fort. So we have a fort there now, which will greatly enhance the experience of any visitors that come forth. Um, but I just would like to say too, growing up in St. Augustine, I was born and raised in St. Augustine, and I've seen a lot of changes
Mm.
over the years. And I actually lived in West Augustine, and not too far from where the college used to be.
Mhm.
And I went to school and church in Lincolnville. So I kind of had the best of both sides of town, so to speak. And as Ms. Phillips was saying earlier, Lincolnville has been a vital part of the black community. And we really need to tell the story because we had, on this trail is 20 sites.
Mhm.
I think there need to be 200 sites. But I think we had, for the sake of brevity and finance wise, the 20 sites that was decided on were the ones that would probably give you questions that
Yeah.
would lead you to the other sites.
Yeah.
So I think it was it was kind of a labor of love doing this project because I've always had the mantra that, when something was going on downtown, something was going on uptown
Hmm.
and something was going on overtown and also on the west side. So when you think about history and telling the story of history, you really want to look at the total picture to get a total idea of what was happening at that time. So there was something going on all over St. Johns County, not just in downtown
Yeah.
St.
And for
Augustine.
centuries too. For
Yes.
centuries.
Yes.
All right. I want to see. I think we have Dr. Hobbs back again here. Can you hear us okay, Dr. Hobbs?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right,
Good morning, everyone.
fantastic. Well, look, we were just talking a little bit about Fort Mose and some of the other sites here. I wanted to see if you could talk to us a little bit about, this heritage trail spans centuries of history in St. Johns County from the colonial era all the way up to the civil rights era and even more contemporary than that. Can you talk to us a little bit about the challenge or the process, I guess, of trying to condense and select these locations that span such a wide chunk of history?
Yes, it was a beautiful challenge. As a public historian, it's whether it's an exhibition or a history trail like this, I really enjoy that process. You start typically with the physical spaces, and so the Lincolnville Museum and the Excelsior High School, Fort Mose, the Civil Rights Trail that already existed. There's so many wonderful locations that already kind of ground you when you come into a project like this. And then the next layer is filling in through research things that you don't know, other parts of the story. What was really happening in St. Johns County during the era of slavery when it was a U.S. State and territory. That's not something that's readily available, but it's a gap that we really worked hard to fill as a part of this project and telling the story specifically of New Switzerland, which was, again, new information for me. It was fascinating to learn about and to be able to visit the geography where that plantation once existed. I think the part that I enjoyed the most was our charrette, our gathering of local cultural keepers and long-term residents who were able to fill in those gaps for us. And what they shared with us just really gave us such a wonderful and powerful glimpse of the community networks and the tapestry of the various communities, whether it was West Augustine, Lincolnville, things that would, there's very little evidence of in terms of the teen clubs and the small black businesses that existed during the era of Jim Crow and even later. And so that for us was like a gold mine that we were able to bring to life and incorporate into some of the text.
I know we were having some issues with the phones earlier, so I want to go back to the first thing I asked you, which was, as a historian, you've studied Florida, you have a lot of experience writing about Florida. Can you talk a little bit about diving into the history of St. Johns County and kind of approaching this area? Was it different than other areas of Florida that you've studied, or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this definitely was a labor of love. I have so many memories, even as a child and a young person visiting St. Augustine on that social studies field trip to the fort. And then as during my professional career, I've had so many opportunities to come back and work and lecture. And then I spent as a faculty member and administrator at Florida Memorial University, which is now in Miami-Dade County, but they were located in St. Augustine, West Augustine for 50 years. That really began kind of my in-depth look into the local history of St. Augustine. And so the challenge, I think, is as you pointed out, trying to cover those roughly 5 centuries of Black life in the county with such a limited purview. We weren't writing a book. We needed to, populate a published guide, put up panels of text, and have a website. And so there really was a lot. You go wide, and you write it up, and then you make decisions and try to be judicious about what actually ends up in the final project. And so it was great to be able to revisit. Great, of course, to work with both Thomas and Regina again. Regina's done such fantastic work and on the ground for years now, helping to interpret the Black history, and so many others. To have them at the table and to have their sites included in this project, we hope will also be a boost to their specific sites and the work that they're carrying on.
Very nice. Very interesting. I'm going to put you on hold here for just a minute, but we're going to circle back to you too. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jackson, since she mentioned that there's a lot of history here, there's a lot of thought that went into it, and you're not writing a book, so it's a totally different process than just collecting it and putting it into a book. I know sites like the Lincolnville Museum and the Accord Museum offer sort of a museum experience you would expect, where you walk into a museum and there are exhibits and these kinds of things. But Fort Mose is totally different than that. Fort Mose is a completely different experience of going to a place that has some real living history. What kind of experience do people get when they go to Fort Mose?
Well, I wouldn't say it's totally different because there is a museum there, and the museum is kind of self-guided.
hmm
We have different displays that when you walk into a certain zone, you get a first-person interpretation of life at Mose. So that, in a sense, that's kind of a museum setting.
True.
But we do have militia musters the first Saturday of each month between 9 and 11. And the militia come out, and what we do is what militias do. We check our weapons. We make sure we have everything is clean. And then after we clean the weapons and put together our rounds for firing, we do a couple of firings and let the public see how the Spanish commands were given at that time. And now we have a fort, so we can let people go through the fort and see some of the somehow the fort back at that time was constructed.
hmm
Excuse me. So we have something that's tangible that you can see and feel and touch. And of course, it's on the intercoastal, Robinson Creek. So we've kind of got the setting as well. Of course, going downtown St. Augustine is a little different. So you have urban setting, so to speak. But when you go to Fort Mose, you're kind of out in the elements like it was at that time.
hmm
So it's a little different, but it's the same in a way too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Dr. Tameka Bradley Hobbs, Brenda Swann, Gayle Phillips, and Thomas Jackson about the St. Johns County Black Heritage Trail. You can join the conversation by calling 904-549-2937. You can email at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or reach out on social media. I want to talk a little bit about slightly more contemporary history too. I know you mentioned, Miss Phillips, the civil rights history in the area. And one thing I've found when I'm reporting on St. Johns County or talking to people in the area is that a lot of people know the area's civil rights history, but a lot of people also don't realize what a large role St. Johns County played during the civil rights era. I mean, we talk about Birmingham and we talk about other cities that played big roles, but I don't think people necessarily think of St. Augustine as such an important spot during the civil rights movement.
You're right, and I think part of it is some of that history was suppressed. I think maybe, I don't know, maybe a point of embarrassment for
hmm
people who lived here. So we happen kind of in between, the Birmingham, Selma stories, and the movement moved on. So a lot of the people who were involved in the movement also moved on because they had a hard time um, resettling in the community. Their businesses went away for the most part. So you had almost like a period of silence in St. Augustine as it related to the civil rights movement. So that's probably one of the most amazing stories we tell where people come back and say, oh, wow, I didn't know that happened here.
Hmm.
We get that almost every day with people going through the museum because they've seen the pictures of, Mr. Brock pouring acid in the pool at the Monson Motor Lodge. They've
Hmm.
seen the weighed-in pictures. They say, "I did not know that was in St. Augustine," or they'll see the pictures of Dr. King being incarcerated here. They have no idea that he was arrested in St. Augustine as
Yeah.
well, and I used to think that there were, like, hundreds of arrests of Dr. King, but there really were only a handful, and one of those was here in St. Augustine.
Yeah. I know also, I'm glad you mentioned the wait-ins because that's a particularly interesting part of the civil rights movement's history here in St. Augustine of people protesting segregation on the beaches. And Brenda, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the museum exhibit that's out there on the beaches. I was there when you guys broke the ribbon and
Oh,
announced
great.
the whole thing, and it was really fascinating.
Sure, absolutely. So the sort of the precursor to this bigger project, the St. Johns County Cultural Council developed an exhibit to put out at the county pier where the wait-ins happened in June 1964. And we happen to also manage a building for the city of St. Augustine Beach, and it's the only building left that was there. And it's on the National Register of Historic Places for that purpose because of its national significance relative to the wait-ins and their national broadcasting. There was, you know, people coming in to wait in, and also at that time, St. Augustine was starting to celebrate its 400th anniversary, get those things together, and that was bringing press. So there was a lot of press here in St. Augustine, and that was videoed, that was pictures, all of that, and it went national. And because of that, that press coverage, the demonstrations here are widely credited with the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Hmm.
So that's really where St. Augustine gets. That's really why it's so significant, right up there with the other cities, Birmingham, Selma, in that civil rights movement. And so that exhibit's out there. As you walk to the beach, you can look at the panels. You mentioned the opening. That was a really moving experience. Those
Yeah.
people that were there, and were protesting and working to desegregate the beaches. And it was actually hard for them. We worked with the Accord Museum, who still was in touch with them, and they had been nervous about coming back. They hadn't really been back since.
Yeah.
So to hear their stories and to see them be celebrated by the entire community, not just the people that were doing it with them, but the entire community, mayors, all of that, that was really moving.
Yeah,
So,
it really was a very moving event. The two men who came back, Shed Dawson and Purcell Conway,
mhm.
shared these stories, and now this is another site on the trail that you can
Yep.
go visit. I'm gonna take Dr. Hobbs back real quick. Can you hear us okay, Dr. Hobbs?
Yes, I can.
I want to ask, we talked a little bit about how this history might not be as well known. Maybe it has even gone through periods of being suppressed so that it is not as widely talked about. What are you hoping, as the researcher on this project, people take away visiting sites on this heritage trail?
I always think it's wonderful that the local residents, when they are able to take a second look at their home county, at their neighborhoods, and with this guide and this information, discover an entirely new layer of local history that was unknown to them. I think for me, when I think about the impact possibly of this project, it's really that to get people to reconsider the territories that they live in on a daily basis. And I think that really is important in terms of just thinking about the layered lives and how connected we all are. I think that's tremendously, tremendously important. I also think it's really good to have had a extension, if you will, of the timeline for the civil rights movement, which we typically start talking about in St. Augustine in 1963. But there were students from what was then Florida Normal and Industrial Memorial College, who let us sit in March of 1960. That was led and organized by Reverend Thomas Wright, and that has not always been talked about when people talk about the movement. And so we've included that, and I hope that people appreciate the presence of that HBCU, even though it's not in the town anymore. But they were very important in putting Florida on the map and making Florida congruent with other HBCU students who are involved in the civil rights movement. And so I think that over so many hundreds of years, there are just really fantastic stories in each century that I hope the community and visitors are able to appreciate.
Very nice. Thank you. Well, look, I guess I want to ask one more time for people who might have joined us midway through the program. Could you guys tell us a little bit about where people can find more information about the trail, how they can engage with this, and what people can kind of do to get involved getting on this?
Sure thing. So again, there is a website, stjohnsculture.com/bh, and it lists all the sites there. You can pull that up you can drive to the various sites throughout the county and walk it through downtown St. Augustine. So you can get it there. We also will have the printed guidebooks at visitor information centers around the area, and as well as in Visit Florida Welcome Centers if you're coming into the state and want to pick one up. And of course, you can always contact St. Johns County Cultural Council, and we'd be happy to get some to you.
Very nice. Well, look, I want to thank you guys very much. Dr. Tameka Bradley Hobbs, Brenda Swann, Regina Gayle Phillips, and Thomas Jackson. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you.
A literacy program empowers teens to strengthen reading proficiency in elementary students while honing their job skills and resumes. Here to tell us about it is CEO and president of Read USA, Dr. Rob Kelly. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
And Moya Allen, a Read USA tutor. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start just kind of big picture. Dr. Kelly, can you tell us a little bit about Read USA and what the organization does?
Yeah. Read USA is an education nonprofit, and we are aimed at solving illiteracy through workforce development. And our workforce development model of literacy tutoring is our main program. We are reaching kids in the community, helping them read on grade level, and doing that through investing in our teens by giving them a job as tutors to help raise achievement, and they're learning job skills that they can take with them into any job they go into.
Yeah, this whole idea of young people educating other young people is really interesting to me. I mean, do you find, and have you found doing this, that maybe younger people are more receptive to people that are closer to their age, or that everybody benefits from the equation?
Yeah, it's both. Near peer, we call it near peer tutoring, has a lot of evidence behind it. When those kids see a teenager sitting beside them, it's a lot cooler than me sitting beside them. They love that attention from a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some engagement and connection that they have with them. But also it is a two-way benefit. The child gets a benefit from it, but the teen does too. And Moya could talk about that, but they walk away with some life-changing benefits as well.
Yeah, Moya, I do want to hear from you. How long have you been a tutor with Read USA?
I've been tutoring with Read USA since spring of 2022. During that time, I was a junior in high school.
And you're in college now.
Yeah, I am.
That's really exciting. So what has this experience been like for you? Obviously, you've enjoyed it at least a little bit because
Yeah,
you've
of
stuck with
course.
it. But what have you gotten out of it?
Honestly, my experience with Read USA has just been really rewarding. I've grown personally, but also professionally. You guys spoke a little bit about the professional development that we receive as tutors. And so just being able to learn core skills like time management and punctuality and, being responsible for yourself and the people around you. It's just, I've learned a lot over my time.
Do you see yourself becoming an educator later in life? Or
I do at some point in my
Yeah.
life. I keep trying to, turn away from it, but it always, like, every job that I get just ends up in that field, and I honestly do love it. So I do see myself in the future at some point, yeah.
That's really cool.
And Noah, if I can just add
Please.
something that we tell the tutors is We understand you may not want to be a classroom teacher,
Hmm.
but there's education in every job.
Absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
skills they're learning, just teaching someone else, it can benefit them in whatever job they go into.
I imagine that's a really helpful thing for the younger students to take away too, is knowing that you're always learning. You're not just learning when you're in a classroom with a teacher. You're learning when you're talking to, somebody who's only a little bit older than you and they're helping you too.
That's right.
Can you tell us who some of the ideal candidates are for this and what a schedule looks like for a tutor?
Sure. So any tutor who is 16 to 21 years old can work with us.
Mhm.
If they're eligible to work in the U.S., they are eligible to work with us. Um, and there's a confusion that they have to be a Duval County Public School student. They don't. Homeschoolers, charter school, private school, any teen who wants to work with us. The schedule is Tuesday through Thursday each week from either 3 to 6 or 4 to 6 p.m. after school. And we provide transportation to and from the job for those teens who need it.
With that in mind, Moya, what does like a typical session look like for you? I know Read USA tutors have more than just one student they work with, but what does a day as a tutor look like for you?
So I come in, I sign in, I grab all my materials, I go over the lesson plan for that day, make sure that I know exactly the goals that we need to achieve in this one lesson that we're sitting down and doing. And I kind of just take the student through. We start with introducing the book. They read it to me, we go through it, and we answer some questions. Some students may need extra when it comes to like work when it comes to phonics, so we might do that before or after the lesson, and then we do like a little prompt in the journal. So it basically just it's a lot of steps that they take just to make sure that they understand the material and that they're learning those skills to become better readers.
Very nice. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Dr. Rob Kelly and Moya Allen about Read USA's literacy initiatives. You can join the conversation by calling 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or reach out on social media. I want to ask because obviously literacy initiatives are enriching for individual students who are learning to become better readers and for the tutors who are gaining these kind of lifelong education skills. But what have you observed on a more macro scale for maybe the community in Duval and beyond about what changes when you have more students who are learning to read faster and better, I guess?
Mhm. So just starting at the school level, the work that we're doing is goes beyond just the tutoring program because we also hire teachers uh, who are working in these schools to work with us after school. They're taking these skills back into their classroom, and there's a ripple effect of instruction. But because when people can read proficiently, we know that they are likely to live longer, have
Hmm.
fewer health concerns, be less likely to be incarcerated, and be less likely to live below the poverty line. So
Hmm.
literacy is strongly related to a lot of those life outcomes.
And literacy is something too. My understanding is that it's the education works the best and can be very, very effective at especially younger ages too, right?
That's all right. The older the kid gets, the more difficult it is to remediate.
I know too that you guys are a nonprofit organization. Have you been affected at all by the federal government's cuts and kind of changes to how they work with and fund nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, we were. We actually did lose some funding back in the spring of this year. We're working to get that funding back. Fortunately, some of the funding has come back, but some of it is still uncertain.
Mhm.
So, but we are trying our best to continue as much programming as we did last year, and hoping to get some more funding locally so that we can continue that programming this year.
Moya, if someone's listening, a young person or maybe somebody with a child who might be interested in doing this, what would you say to somebody who maybe doesn't have any experience tutoring but is potentially interested in doing something like this?
I would say first, I came into it with zero experience as well. I didn't know how to teach a lesson essentially to 9 and 10-year-olds, and Read USA really prepared me for that aspect of it. Not only professionally, but also like that personal growth as well. So to someone who wants to tutor and they're looking for a job, and I would say Read USA is the best way to go. They'll teach you how to do the things that you need to complete and do the job effectively, but also you'll grow as an individual throughout your time with Read USA.
And they might even discover that they have a love for education that they didn't know they
Exactly.
had. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You were telling me before we went on air here that you're a student at UNF.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're studying and kind of maybe how your time as a tutor has affected that?
Yeah, so right now I'm a junior at UNF. I'm studying political science with a minor in sociology. And honestly, my time at Read USA, it has really taught me kind of what aspect of politics I kind of want to go into and
Hmm.
what I see myself doing in the future. So, like you guys were saying, even though I don't want to traditionally work in the classroom, I can also do other things that are related to, education policy. And that really just made me realize that there's so many different avenues within education that I can take. And I'm grateful for EGSA to opening those doors for me.
That's really cool. Dr. Kelly, obviously we have Moya here and she's a standout and so intelligent and interesting. How many tutors do you guys have with Read USA?
We have about 215 tutors every
Wow.
semester.
Wow.
Yeah,
And obviously I imagine you're trying to expand those numbers too.
we are. And we do that through funding.
Is that just in Duval County or?
Right now, we get tutors from Duval County and some of the surrounding counties.
Mhm.
The tutoring that we're providing, the classrooms that we're in, are in Duval County, but we have a plan for scaling soon
Hmm.
into some of the surrounding counties.
I was going to ask, I mean, I know this might be tricky with the funding situation at the moment, but what is the eventual dream for Read USA?
Right. When our founder, Ellen Wiss, created Read USA, she named it Read USA for a reason because she knew that this could be something that would work across the country. And that's really our goal, is to take this model everywhere we can.
Very neat, very neat. Well, look, if somebody is interested in becoming a tutor, getting more involved, learning more about this, where can they find out some more information?
Our website is the best place to go, www.readusainc.com/apply. And we need tutors right now, starting next week.
The school year has started.
It has
So
started.
yeah, those kids are ready to start learning, I'm sure.
That's right.
Well, look, Dr. Rob Kelly, Moya Allen, thanks so much for being here, you guys.
Thank you for having us.
There's a few initiatives to make Jacksonville stand out just a little more. I'm joined this morning by Shannon Blankenship, Executive Director at the Riverside Avondale Preservation. How are you doing this morning?
Just fine.
I want to talk about some cool new initiatives that RAP has launched recently. One is for this cute, the little local box that is very adorable in concept, and the other is for a new mural. But I want to start first. You guys are calling these placemaking initiatives. Can you
Sure.
explain to us what that means?
So, for anyone that's familiar with Riverside and Avondale neighborhoods, I think we're a place, we're a destination for people to come visit. And placemaking is all about turning spaces into places, right? So that instead of walking by something, you're really experiencing it while you're there. It really allows us to utilize the history of our neighborhood, the historic district, as well as our current artists, our parks, our public places, and make them into interesting, intriguing destinations where you not only learn more about our neighborhood while you're doing it, but maybe can really fully participate in the neighborhood, in our, I guess I would say, local economy,
Mhm.
and things like that while you're there.
I will say one of my favorite things to do is when I have family or friends in town and my wife and I get to take them to maybe a part of Jacksonville they've never been to, like Riverside or Avondale, and hearing them say, "Wow, I had no idea this neighborhood was here and it's so cute and da da da." So yeah, it makes sense that you're right. It's a place people can go. It's a destination more so.
And I love thinking that the little local box specifically, and I know we'll get to it, but that's exactly what it was meant to do. When you take a walk by our office and are able to stop and see the items that have been placed there, sort of curated for people that want to learn more about local artists, want to be able to pop in and see a different maybe take or understanding of what a local artist has decided to put in the little local box. It's all about trying to make a destination right there in the heart of our walkable neighborhood for anyone that happens to be, strolling around and wants to see what we have in the box.
Well, we're already talking about it, and people who are watching online would have seen a photo of it too. It looks like a lot like a little free library, but what's in the little local box?
So we took the concept of little free libraries, which are incredible. And in fact, our neighborhood has dozens of them throughout. So a lot of great places to find books if you're interested in that. But we wanted to take our mission through the Riverside Arts Market, which is loyal to local, and bring that into our headquarters and our offices. So the loyal to local mission is in the little local box by having local makers, artists, and creators themselves be able to display something that they're donating to the community. And then we're asking makers if you add something or take something to really try and have a give or take system, which most little free libraries are. But anyone can make something, anyone can create something. But I would say most of our local artists, you can utilize your hashtag or your Instagram handle to make sure that people that can look into more of your artwork that you have to display.
That's really cool. That's really neat. There's also a new mural that is planned over at the Riverside Arts Market underneath the bridge there. I want to hear a little more about, the timeline, the theme, because I think this is a really great opportunity for an artist's work to be seen by so many people on any average day or a Saturday when the market's happening.
This mural is going to have a lot of visibility, so I think it'll be really popular. The Riverside Arts Market is our look into what is authentically Jacksonville,
Hmm.
because the loyal to local mission, the producer only focus, really helps us to be a very genuine space. What we're looking to do at the JA pump station is take in the St. Johns River, really, and a focus on water, and bring it into the market to add that nature, that natural side of the place that we're in, and have it displayed through a means of public art. We're sitting down with the selection committee at the end of this week when the call for artists is over, and are going to look at what local artists have put forth as potential renderings for the project. And I have no doubt that whatever we end up with in a few months there at the Riverside Arts Market is going to be really positive, really eye catching.
Very cool. Very, very cool. And is there a timeline of maybe when this new mural is going to be open and visible for people to see?
Sure. So the call for artists ends on August 20th,
Hmm.
followed by selection committee process, which should only take about a few weeks. Once we select the candidate that will be the artist to create the mural, they'll then have a timeline themselves to be able to create the mural of up to 6 weeks. So I hope that by this fall, for sure, if you come out to the Riverside Arts Market to support Small Business Saturday or any of your holiday shopping, you're going to be able to see this mural up on the pump station.
Very cool. Very, very neat. Well, look, Shannon Blankenship, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show. Thank you for listening. If you have feedback or suggestions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at wjct.org. If you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight. You can also find our entire archive at wjct.org or on your podcast platform of choice. The executive producer of First Coast Connect is David Luckin. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett and directed by Brady Corum. Our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when Ann Schindler is back. You've been listening to First Coast Connect at WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.